Welcome to the Latin Chamber Influencers Show, where we bring you the people that absolutely influence our city, our state, our community. And today is no different. I have the pleasure of having my dear friend and friend of the Latin Chamber of Commerce and the Hispanic community, Congresswoman Dina Titus. How are you today?
Well, I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on again, Peter.
Yeah, no, it's my pleasure. And, we want to make sure that our audience and our members and our community is informed and well informed. I think more now than ever, I'm really seeing how they're paying attention. So I want to make sure that I can bring the voices directly to them so that they can make wise and good decisions, because voting matters.
Absolutely. I mean, if you don't vote, you don't have a voice. Isn't that one of the expressions, "Su voto es su voz"?
That's right. That's exactly right. So just to start off a little personal, who's had the greatest influence on you in your life?
Well, I'd probably have to say my grandfather. He came to this country from Greece, started out as a dishwasher, and eventually had his own restaurant. But he instilled in me some of the principles of Greece, which are the foundations of our democracy, which I taught at UNLV for many years. But also his cafe had a back table, and people would come across the street from the courthouse and sit back there and talk politics and drink coffee. And I think it just got into my system at an early age. And he always remained very Greek, but he was also a very proud American. And I think I must have gotten some of that in my genes.
That's interesting. I know the Greek culture is so much like my Cuban culture and Hispanic culture, and that politics is like it seems like every meal it's going to lead to politic conversation, right?
Well, that's right. It's very strong on family, strong on eating. And when you put the two together, you're going to have a lot of hollering, but then kiss and make up.
That's right. That's right. And tell us about your journey. How did you become the Congresswoman?
Well, I studied political science in college. I went to school at William and Mary, which is kind of the heart of American democracy. It's where Patrick Henry gave his famous speech, "Give me liberty or give me death." So I studied it, I taught it. I came to teach at UNLV in 1976 in the political science department. And so then I just decided, I like politics. I read it, I write it, I teach it. Why not try it? And so I ran for the state legislature in 1988 and won. And I've been doing that ever since. I don't call it politics, though. I call it public service. And that's how I see my role.
Yeah, I like that. And you certainly do exemplify that. So that's awesome. I want to get into small business, which, as you know, is my passion. It's the passion of the chamber. It's why we exist first and foremost, right? Small business community. We know that in the Hispanic community, it's just such a high level of entrepreneurship, and small businesses are the engine that run this country. So tell us about, as a Congresswoman, how you feel you've helped the small business community.
Well, let me say first, Peter, what a pleasure it is to work with you in the chamber. Y'all are out front on every issue. You do so much to organize and educate and get good information out to small businesses. But also during COVID, when we were all hit so hard, Las Vegas, one of the hardest hit places in the country, y'all did so many public service things in addition just to business. And you should be very proud of that. People respect the chamber and they look to you for guidance. So it's great to be your partner.
Thank you for those words.
Well, it's true. It's really true. And also what true is what you say about small businesses being the engine of our economy. People don't realize it, but they hire more people overall than do big businesses. I mean, this is kind of the bedrock of local economies. And that's true here in Nevada too, especially in District 1, which is ethnically diverse. A lot of family-owned small businesses in the Hispanic community, but also in the Asian community. So they're a real priority to me. And you see the big casinos, but they support a lot of small ancillary businesses, whether it's florists or caterers or laundry. So it really is a symbiotic partnership. When we did the Recovery Acts, that was a priority, and certainly for me, to be sure that any money that came from the federal government went directly to small business, whether it was to help them pay the lease, help them pay utilities, help them just keep people on the payroll so they wouldn't have to shut down, because people weren't going out, so they weren't going to restaurants. They weren't supporting that part of the economy. They weren't going to the picture show. They were kind of hunkered down at home. And the flip side of that is that members of the Hispanic community were frontline workers. They didn't have the luxuries of staying home. They were out there getting our groceries or teaching children. Even that was kind of at home, but they were on the front line. And so we wanted to be sure that they got some of the benefits. And I think we did a good job of that.
Yeah, and I can attest to that because I work closely with you and your office in just making sure that, although I may or may not have agreed with all the decisions, I know that the tough decisions were made, and I like to try to put myself in other people's shoes and who have to make tough decisions. But really what I was passionate about was making sure that these businesses were going to try to survive.
Yes.
I mean, we knew that they had to close, but we also knew they were going to open. It was a matter of time when they were going to open. And so getting through that transition was something that was, it was tough. And a lot of those funds kept businesses around. There's no question about that. So I'm glad that we were able to work together on that. And now coming out of the COVID, we need the small businesses. We need an environment where they're going to succeed. Otherwise, we're going to lose jobs. Would you agree with that?
Oh, I absolutely would. In fact, we just passed, and I was a co-sponsor of it, a prime co-sponsor, an ancillary additional allocation to go to small businesses and restaurants and shuttered venues. So all three of those will benefit from the new package. We got to get it out of the Senate, but it has passed the House for the very reason that you say. And if I could brag for just a minute, Peter, one of the things that I was really proud of, I chair the subcommittee on economic development. And I pushed very hard that in the formulas for which states get how much money, we added unemployment. It was originally just based on population. Well, we have a relatively small population in Nevada, but we had the highest unemployment in the country. So by adding unemployment to that formula, the state of Nevada got an extra $1 billion to help with the consequences of COVID.
Yeah, and that's important. I mean, it just is important. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate you bringing up the restaurants because, a lot of my membership is restaurants, and restaurants, even a normal day is very tough profit margins. Okay. People assume that restaurants are making all this money, but they're not. The profit margins are thin, and you got to know what you're doing to exist and survive because of those profit margins being so thin, but they employ a lot of people. And like you said, ancillary, right? There's trucks hauling in food to those restaurants. That's a small business. And so that's another reason why we got to do what we can to make sure that these gas prices and inflation at some point get under control, because otherwise the pain is real. So
well, that's true, that we got to get gas prices down, and we're trying to do that. We stopped buying gas and oil from Russia. 75% of people wanted us to do that because we wouldn't want to support Russia while we're trying to help Ukraine that's under such attack. The president's going to release some more oil from our reserves, and we're going after the big oil companies who I think are just doing war pricing and war gouging of. They, instead of drilling more to get more oil into the system, they'd rather just raise the price at the pump. And so we've got to stop that and be sure we go after that too.
Well, certainly if that's happening, then, by all means, all for it. We got to go after the bad actors. We got to do everything we can to keep our country strong and moving. That's what I advocate for each and every day. So I want to switch gears to something else that's, quite frankly, it pisses me off, and that's immigration, because, what I see out here on the streets is the continuing of kicking the can down the road has led to more racism, more hatred, and against the people that, in my opinion, and I certainly am biased and proud of it, these folks work every day. They keep our strip open. they run businesses, they hire people. I mean, immigrants, America is immigrants. I mean, let's face it. And so for this immigration to be kicked down the road is just, again, it's time. It's long overdue. Now, I know comprehensive immigration reform is a tough job. You and I have spent a lot of time talking about it, and it takes a lot of cooperation. That's the way our country works. But man, we got to get it done because the border is out of control.
I know. I totally agree with you. We've been working on this since I've been in Congress. I'm a co-sponsor of every immigration bill there is, and we passed a lot of them out of the House. We passed the Dreamer Act to help DACA students or DACA recipients stay in this country. We passed that also included TPS, and we have a lot of TPS folks in this country. The thing is hard too is that families are mixed status. In any one family, you'll have maybe children who were born here, who are citizens, dreamers, TPS, somebody with no papers, and somebody who doesn't even know what they are. And so it's a whole combination of problems, but it needs to be done. It's only fair. These people are the hardest working folks I know. They take jobs that other people won't have. They work 2 or 3 jobs to take care of their family and send money back to the country that they left. And many of them left those countries because of either economic hardship or a hurricane came through, or violence and danger from gangs, or sometimes the government itself. So this is something we absolutely need to get done. But, and we've talked about this before too. Immigration is a very important issue, but we can't forget that these folks also care about the issues that you were talking about: employment, keeping their business going, a good education for their children, services in their community that keep them safe. We can't just forget that part and focus only on immigration.
No, I agree with that, and I was definitely going to mention that. What I'm seeing more than ever, and I know people are paying more attention to this. We're seeing soccer moms, we're seeing Hispanic, Latina moms. They're upset about education, and I'm talking about here locally. Yeah. And they're who knows what they're going to do at the voting booth, but those that can vote are definitely paying attention. They're not happy with the fact that from what I'm hearing from them is we got to get back to reading, science, math. We got to get down to those basics in those early years and really go hard on those, because if you're not reading in the 6th grade at a 6th grade level, you know where you're headed, right? You know what the pipeline says. The pipeline is the pipeline to prison. Yeah. And there's statistics that actually speak to that, and they're mind-boggling.
Well, that's right. And you certainly can't just take any of these folks for granted and assume they're going to vote for you. You've got to earn that vote. And that means policy that reflects what they care about. Education is critical in immigrant families because this is the way out of poverty. I'm a teacher all my life, and I know how critical education is. I talk about people who work on the strip. Folks work in the back of the house so their children can work in the front of the house. I mean, you want your children to always do better than you do, and education is a key to that. But besides getting back to the basics, I think parents are worried about all the violence you're seeing in schools nowadays. You can't learn if you don't feel safe, and people carrying guns on campuses and beating up teachers. I mean, we've got to do something about that.
Well, there's no question about it. And again, that's why I respect you, because you're on the issues and you have no problem calling or texting me and saying, hey, what's going on here? And what are you hearing? And that's the way good government should work, right? I mean, we're on the ground and you're doing the work, but you're also sometimes in DC, and that's why it's good to have the connections that you have. And I think that's why, sometimes I'm definitely for you going back to Congress and working on our behalf, because a lot of folks who don't understand how it works in DC, you got to have some seniority to get some things done. You got to know how to maneuver it over there. And I understand that very, very well. Doesn't mean I'm for everybody staying there for 100 years, but I certainly understand how it works. And you're absolutely right. I mean, you think about it, as a kid, if you don't feel safe or you're hungry, you're not learning.
That's right. That's
You're
exactly
just not
right.
learning.
Well, I had the backpack for children bill to give children a backpack to take something home over the weekend so they'd have something to eat, because we've got a lot of children who are homeless in the district. They go from home to home or live in the car or something like that. We've got to deal with the inequities and the system, and there's systemic inequities, whether it's healthcare, education, job opportunities. And so we've got to address that. And COVID made those even more stark as we saw how people recovered. You mentioned about me being in Washington, though. I'd like to give a plug to my local office. Ana Quintanilla is my district director, and she's the best person there is for immigration. We help so many people with immigration issues, whether it's visas or going down to ICE and attending the immigration court. So while we haven't done anything in the broad sense, we've helped a lot of individuals, and I'm very proud of that when somebody comes up to me on the street and says, your office helped me keep my father in the country, or something like that.
As you should be. And it's the exact reason why when every once in a while I get asked, well, why do you like, Congresswoman Dina Titus? And if I feel like answering the question, I answer it firmly with the fact, starting with Ana Quintanilla and your passion for immigrants, and realizing that, yeah, we may not have comprehensive immigration reform yet, we're working on it, but we're going to help individuals. And I know that for a fact, because I've called Ana 100 times. I know this. And so, yeah, absolutely. Kudos to your office and to Ana and yourself for allowing that to happen. I want to touch back on the small business community. How can the Hispanic business community be more engaged with your office?
Well, we would like to, now that we can get back together, go through you, Peter, and see about maybe a small cabinet of Hispanic leaders who can advise us on everything from COVID recovery to immigration reform or education. If you could help us put together something like that from those small business leaders, I think that'd be a great opportunity just to have a dialogue constantly. They can always reach out on issues and be involved with the chamber. And also we have a lot of town meetings, and we also have an office once a week at the East Las Vegas Community Center. So people can go and meet with us there, as well as our office in City Hall. But I would follow your guidance on something like that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And we've done those roundtables in the past, and we're planning some now as we speak, in fact. And I know we have something coming up in the chamber with you soon. But yeah, I want to make sure that the Hispanic business community knows that they have a voice, and they can call your office anytime, and my office certainly, and I'll make connections all day long. So listen, I know that you got a re-election coming up.
Yeah.
I know that some new lines were drawn and things of that nature, but tell us how you feeling about your re-election.
Well, I'm running for re-election. If I weren't an optimist, I wouldn't be in this business, Peter. But the district is new. It's not so new to me. I've represented a lot of it when I was in the state legislature. It's just a matter of going back and reintroducing myself. It's kind of like coming home when you've been gone a long time. You want people to remember what some of the things were that you did. I'm sorry, though, it split the Hispanic community, because we've built a real strong relationship. And now they'll have, maybe it's good to have two offices to go to, but in some ways it dilutes that power. But we're going to be working hard. I'm going to be all over this valley. It's home to me for many, many years. It's a place I know and love. And so we got to talk about the things that we've done. You can't just say infrastructure. Nobody knows what that is or cares. You got to say, well, it was that street in your neighborhood, or it was that that water system. Be specific, and that's what we're going to try to do.
And personalize it. You got to personalize it. These folks, they hear a lot of empty promises, but when you personalize it, they do get it. I will say that. And I'm glad you said what you said, because at the Latin Chamber, we advocate for individuals to make sure the importance of relationships. Have a relationship with your banker, have a relationship with your doctor, have a relationship with your representative, call them, and I know you know this, Congresswoman, you work for us, you work for your constituents, so you can only do a great job if you're hearing from them. That's why we encourage them to call your office.
Yes. Well, that's right. I don't think of myself just as a lawmaker. I think of myself as a representative. And that means having the voices at home inform what I do for policy. And by the way, all our literature and everything on our Facebook and in our office is bilingual. So people shouldn't hesitate if they feel more comfortable in Spanish. My Spanish isn't too good. Ojalá que mejore, but it's.
That was pretty good.
Well, thank you, Peter. But we certainly have a bilingual staff and information.
Yeah, and again, I want to reiterate the relationship. Even recently, when I needed to have a meeting with you at a coffee spot, short notice, on behalf of a Nevada business, you were there. You said, let's meet, let's talk about it. That's what it's all about. That's what relationships are about. And that's the greatness of our country, right? Representative government and being able to have access to someone like you. I think that speaks volumes of how great our country is.
Well, it is certainly our hallmark if you can have that relationship. And that's why it's so important that we protect that democracy.
Yeah. And I know that everybody isn't going to always agree on everything.
That's right.
But being able to speak about it and talk about it is how things get done. And hopefully we'll see a lot more of that. So what's the future, Congresswoman Titus? What's the future?
I think it's bright. I keep going back to how hard hit Las Vegas was, but look how fast we're recovering. Our unemployment's gone from 35% to 5%. Our airport's the fastest recovering. Gaming revenues are up. You're seeing small businesses, their main problem is finding help, finding people who can work now that things are opening up again. So I think the future looks bright for the Valley, and I still have some things I'd like to do to play a role in that.
Yeah, and I want to throw one thing at you that I wasn't even assuming I was going to throw at you, but I'm going to do it anyways. The nuclear repository waste site that we have there. I know it's still it's kind of dead, but it ain't never really been dead. I mean, couldn't we somehow turn that into a massive cyber tech school or something to do with I watched a program this weekend on cybersecurity that scared the crap out of me, Congresswoman.
Yeah.
I mean, really should have scared everybody who watched 60 Minutes last night, because cybersecurity is a big deal. I mean, they're going to try to attack our infrastructure, our power, our utilities, our water. And so I'm saying, why don't we take that property out there and turn it into something really positive for us? And I know we're not going to figure it out now, but you think that's even a possibility?
I absolutely do think so. We've got Yucca Mountain pretty much stopped for now, as you say, for now. There's no money in the budget. The president's committed to looking at consent-based decision-making, which is the bill that I've had since Harry Reid, and I have it again now. So that's okay, but let's find an alternative. I sit on the Homeland Security Committee, and we have briefings. Some are secret briefings, classified, and others are to the public. But this is what is coming. This is the new warfare, and we're pretty good at offense, but not so good at defense. And we need to really invest in that technology and be sure that we don't fall prey to an attack on our railroads or attack on our hospitals, something that is insidious like that, but that would cause devastation in everyday life over here.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, I want to close it out, Congresswoman, by saying thank you for being here. I'd like you to let everybody know what your personal future is, as far as you know it.
Well, I have a primary in June, and I have then the general in November. I'm running strong and working hard in both. People need to vote. This is something new, Peter, though. This time you can vote by mail. Everything can be by mail, so you don't even have to go and stand in long, hot lines at the voting places. So I would say when you get that in mail ballot, fill it out and turn it in. You don't have to even pay any postage on it. And that's the key. So if you want to have a voice, mail in that ballot, and hopefully you'll mark it for Dina Titus.
And I'm certainly for, everybody being able to vote as easy as possible. But you know what, Congresswoman? I am old school. I still loved my father taking me at 5 years old, 6 years old, watching him vote. He did that on purpose. And today,
Yes.
and then I did it with my kids, and my kids look forward to voting. I still love waiting in line, talking to folks. And, I'm going to do it the old school way, but you're right. Everybody should vote, and let's get their vote to count. That's the most important thing we can do in this country.
Well, do it however is most convenient or most rewarding for you, because you can still go to the polls if you don't want to mail it in. And Nevada has a good election system. There was a lot of talk about fraud last time, but thanks to our Secretary of State, who is a Republican, but is a friend of Barbara Sagaski, Nevada's vote was secure.
Yep, I think Barbara does a great job. And, listen, I heard a lot of things, but I didn't see a lot of things.
Yeah.
And I'm one that I got to see it to believe it. So with that being said, thank you so much. And thank you for being on our show and having a relationship with the Latin Chamber of Commerce, Congresswoman.
Well, I love talking to you, and we are good partners. So whatever we can do to work together, I'm there.
And to all the folks watching Influencers, thank you for taking the time to do that. It is important to bring you the folks that influence our city, our state, and our communities. And today, we are honored that we had Congresswoman Dina Titus, and we will see you soon.